welcome to this webinar. I'm sitting here in London, and I'm really keen to hear our great international stars. We've got a galaxy of stars led by our good friend Ulf Mattsson, who is in the US on the East Coast. I said we've got a galaxy of stars. This is actually an AI event, so who knows what we've got and whether people are actually there or they're avatars or whatever. But this event is entitled AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I see a very good-looking assemblage of people there. So I shall duck out fairly soon after giving you this introduction. My name is Darren, and I'm the chairman of 3 great groups in the BCS, British Computer Society, which in the UK is the Chartered Institute for IT. So we've got a plaque on the wall saying that we supply computing services to the royal family. But never mind that. I would be very gratified if they were here as well. But I know that everybody is interested in our subject, which is AI. So much happening, so many things that we're interested in and being affected by, so far to go. But I should hand over to our good friend Ulf to tell us about all of his friends who are here and tell us where they're from and what their roles are. Ulf, over to you.
Thank you, Dalian. It's good to be here. And I think we have a wonderful panel, very experienced people. So I look forward to our dialogue. It will be very interesting to talk about AI and data security. So I would like each of the speakers to introduce themselves, maybe 3 minutes or maybe more each. And I would say my voice is a little bit bad today. I have a cold, but I hope you can hear me clearly. We will have a Q&A at the end. And also our speakers may add their contact information in the chat so the attendees can reach you. So let's start with Alon, number 1 in alpha order. So Alon, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you all for arranging this webinar. My name is Rosenthal. I've been doing data security for the last 20 years. Invented a notion called dynamic masking. Had my first company acquired by Informatica, which is a large American software company. And then 8 years ago, I left Informatica to found SecuPi, which today is helping organizations such as UBS Bank and Credit Suisse, the Fidelities, the Vanguards, the Vodafones, Telefonica, and many other global organizations with their data security challenges, from their mainframe to AI, right? And we will talk about the hybrid workloads. We talk about operational workloads and analytical workloads. Eventually, organizations are looking for a single platform to address their data access and data security requirements, and that's how we are serving those notable customers of ours. I'm based in Tel Aviv, right, the mecca of cybersecurity, and we have, of course, offices in New York and across Europe, and really happy to be here. Thank you, Ulf, for arranging this.
Welcome. I look forward to our dialogue here. So next one in alphabetical order is Ariel. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ariel Evans. I'm the CEO of RiskQ. My background is I'm a former chief information security officer, and I run several committees on cybersecurity and AI at the university level. And I am pleased to be here.
Good. And you're based in Israel?
I'm based in Israel and New York.
And New York, yeah. So number 3 here in alpha order is Jayend. please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. This is Jayend Krishnamoorthy. Thank you, Ulf, and thank you all the panel members. It's an honor to be here, and thank you all the audience joining in. I am based out of Connecticut, East Coast, from East Coast in the US, and I have been in 20 years with data, and all my life is around the data. And I worked in the past with Thomson Reuters in many different segments of Thomson Reuters. And then I moved to Clarivate, which is again a company separated from Thomson Reuters, focused on intellectual property and web of knowledge and healthcare, especially pharmaceutical. Followed by, I now lead a company, Arivonix, as a CEO. And here I help the customers on the data ecosystem and help them to build all the agentic AI governance, pretty much anything you name around the AI and the data for the companies. That's exactly what we are specialized in. We help them to get them ready for the AI. Thank you, everyone, once again.
Welcome. So next up is John. Can you please introduce?
John Checco. I'm actually a current president of the New York Metro ISSA chapter, past president of New York Metro InfraGard. So I'm obviously on the East Coast in New York. You know, my AI experience goes all the way back to 1982, where I worked at Watson Research Center in the Artificial Intelligence Group. Back then, it was really decision systems and expert systems. Worked in the Artificial Intelligence Lab in the 90s for 9X, which is now Verizon. Advanced Technology Labs, Pitney Bowes, Bank of America, and most recently, Neo Robotics, Applied Research Associates. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Ulf.
Welcome. And then we have Joseph. Please introduce yourself. I'm not sure if he joined.
No, I can't see him, Ulf. I don't know.
Okay. So let's continue. And I would like to start to talk about AI. You know, the title is Data Security, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So I'm very excited about what our panel speakers would say about this, I would think, very timely topic. We have previously talked about different aspects of data security, and now we are mixing AI into this. So I'm very excited about this. So let's start with AI. And the first question I would like to have Alon answer. It's a very broad, open question. And the question is, what is AI data security?
True. So I'll give you our perspective of AI as we're serving large organizations. So the perspective that we see is the need to apply the identification of data through different means, such as formal preserving encryption, tokenization, which Ulf, you invented, as well as bucketing, rounding, scrambling of data, different identification and privacy enhanced technologies. As data is moving from the different sources, it can be sources such as mainframe, it can be Oracle, it can be also documents. So applying different identification functions on the data that is feeding the inference and the models. That's where we see the main bulk of work today for AI. Of course, before we do the identification, we need to classify the data. We need to organize it in such a way that lifting the data to those platforms, structured and unstructured, will be provided in a secure way. And the way that we see that is that data is lifted in organizations through something called ETL, extract, transform, load. These are tools that organizations are massively using in order already to feed data into the data lakes and now into AI. And the way to protect AI from a security perspective would be to put what we call enforcers, which are basically plugins on the different ingestion tools. Those ingestion tools that are lifting data from multiple sources, again, from mainframes and Oracle and the different data platforms into the AI environment. So when they are applying their training and are doing the inference, we will be able to have controls on the sensitivity of the data that they are using. And hence the ability to apply tokenization and encryption and bucketing and rounding of all the source data that they are lifting to AI, that's the right approach that we see endorsed by large organizations.
Okay, thank you. Anyone please comment and jump in and add your perspectives here and on any topics and questions.
Yeah, I can just add to it. See, there is 4 different things here, right? Like there's a data governance, and data security. That's one piece. And also, I believe the topic is also like AI governance and AI security too, right? Like, and there's a lot of overlap, like how people see it, but there are a fine line between the data security and the AI security. And given like the world is moving more towards so-called like all the large language models and the agentic AI, we can see the AI security is getting more and more matured and becoming its own department or division.
So Jayend, can I ask you to explain what is LLM or large language models?
So of course, like I mean, in past, like we have all these AI models, like there are predictive models, probability models. There are a lot of models in the past to do some predictions, some work. They all lag certain things, especially they are not trained on, like, I mean, they're not trained on a large set of data, right? Like, so large language model is a game changer. It comes up with like a concept of both, in technical term, they call encoders, decoders, right? Like, so this is more like taking the whole data that is available in the world, or a subset of it, and trying to make it, trying to digest it and create more reasoning type of a decoders. That way they can summarize, especially like by applying a lot of, like, I mean, weights. They can summarize it with many different parameters. They can summarize it pretty quickly, right? Like, and it's kind of like, I mean, 1,000 times then, like, I mean, what we have been dealing with a decade before with all the different AI models, right? Like, so that's LLM. That's a large language model. So, but now we are stepping into next phase of it. So last year, like, I mean, all the talks were around, like, I mean, the large language models. But now, I mean, I've been to the Gartner 2 weeks back. Like, I mean, if you look at it, everyone will always have the statement saying it is powered by agentic AI. Now, what that means is, you use this large language model as a backbone. You now start creating some autonomous agents that that can, like, work and not just summarize you some information for you to consume, but also go and act on it. So it combines all the toolings and also the brain of the large language model to create a lot of autonomous output. And that makes the agentic AI. And of course, this is just, again, like a 2025 start of the agentic AI. It's going to go in the future into another lane, like the multi-agentic AI, and which we all believe like will turn into AGI, right? Like, but that's where it stands.
Thank you. I would like to bring up a question at this point from Stephen. It's a difficult one. So he's saying, in terms of data security, how do we know that the AI is not exfiltrating data? Anyone?
So,
Well,
hey,
yes.
Checco here. One of the things that Alon had mentioned and Jayend has reference to is the fact that AI is a new way of there's a new way of securing AI, or it has to be. We have to think of it differently. And if you think about traditional data security, it's access control and entitlements, right? And there's two separate things, right? Access control can be centralized. Entitlements, for the most part, can't be centralized. The way LLMs work, right? I'm not talking about, there's a lot of different AIs, expert systems, and so on and such. When we talk about LLMs, they basically take data, deconstruct it, and then reconstruct it. And in the fact of deconstructing it, right, they break it down to the pieces where the entitlements, we lose the entitlement attributes to those data elements. When it's reconstructed, then there's a high propensity for inference to happen, where it's reconstructing classified or confidential data from non-confidential pieces. So I think, yes, how do you know that we're exfiltrating data? There's a couple of companies out there that are trying to address this problem, and basically it's looking at the outcomes. I think the term is called differential privacy, where they're looking at the outcomes and seeing, do these outcomes match any of the entitlement rules that we have in place? And if they don't, maybe we shouldn't give out that information. So there's a lot going on there in that space. I don't know if there's a cut and dried solution for that.
Thank you. Interesting with differential data, that approach. So maybe we can bring that up at a later point. I think it's very, very important. Let's see. I would like to take this question from Kitty Hang. And Kitty is saying, I would like to add one more item, ethical data source, which I think relevant to AI data security. Anyone?
I can take that question. See, when again, I'll just go with the practical examples. A lot of companies have a lot of data, right? Now it is we have to bring in data governance, especially the AI governance, to make sure these agentic AIs are not poisoning the data, and it is kept ethically correct, right? So in terms to bring this data and keep it ethically and in aligned with enterprise policies, what has to be done is, in the first place, you start from putting a proper policy-driven architecture in that company, right? So that's starts from in the design phase itself, where you determine what data can be accessed by who or what agents, how you are making sure that the data is in scope, and it's and the agents are whatever the work they are doing on top of the data, they are intended to do only that specific work, and they do not have any access. And especially it goes with this again, the AI security, where you have to make sure it's always given the least privilege, and at no time all these AIs or agents are going back and poisoning your data, right? So to control all this is where a strict data governance comes into the picture that helps you to keep the operation ethically correct.
I just would add a few things to the first couple of questions. So in AI, there needs to be a look at the regulations to understand actually what is being required. And these regulations are in their infancy. They will evolve over time. There are new frameworks that are coming out from different areas that are giving us some inkling as to what to expect. However, with looking at ethical use of data, this is going to go back to the governance policy, as you said earlier, but also you have to incorporate in bias and explainability into the model to make sure that the data that you're getting is not going to be biased. and that the model is explainable from input to output. In other words, what's happening in the black box. These things are required by the regulations as well.
Thank you. Ariel, can you tell us a little bit more about what could a bias mean?
A bias means basically that the data output is having a negative impact on a particular segment of a group. So it could be racial, it could be religious, it could be age related. It's a number of different things. The real indicator of bias is that the impact is impacting a particular group only. So as an example, if you're using it in the insurance industry and you're looking to insure a different a group of people, you may be using this AI data in a way that makes prices higher for a certain group versus lower than a certain group. So that's something that would be considered bias.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we have something more here that is related. Marutza is saying, are there any certifications that make sure organizations follow the governance of data? Anyone?
Certifications in terms of
I
different
don't
groups
know.
that are providing certification, or certifications in terms of audits?
What Marutza is saying, certifications that make sure organizations follow the governance of data.
Well, that would be done in an audit then at that point. And I don't think there's anyone auditing AI at this point that's providing a certification to my knowledge.
There is
I agree.
there is no industry standard, or there is nothing regulated from the government yet. Again, there are two things, right? Like there is a data governance certification, there is a AI governance certification, right? So for data governance, I believe some of the compliance certification that is already there in the market, like the ISO 271. So those will get to some level of certification that the company has some kind of a data governance and security in place. But like she said, like there is no AI governance certification or audit program yet widely available, and this is exactly where like many governments, and also there is the European Union AI Act just released in 2025. What it means, and I believe in maybe in a year or two, like we will start seeing all the compliance and certification audit programs coming up.
So NIST put out an AI framework, and they're working globally in something called a plan for global engagement on AI standards, which is NIST AI 100-5. It's to be released in it was released in July of 2024. KPMG put out a framework. There's other frameworks that are in process that are not yet released. So you have quite a bit of data out there, but the question is, how do you correlate it all against your current risk assessments? And NIST is probably the one that's going to be most easy to correlate, because most people are using NIST cybersecurity framework, or they're using the ISO.
Yeah, ironically, in the financial services world, the closest thing that we have to date is an SEC ruling back from the mortgage crisis, when distressed debts were basically packaged as funds. And the SEC came out with a transparency rule saying no financial instrument can be bought or sold without full transparency. And again, built for the mortgage crisis, but perfect for AI, right? I mean, if banks and financial institutions are going to start using AI in building their funds or wrapping their financial instruments, they have to have full transparency. So again, not directly related to AI, but definitely can be applied to AI.
There is one that's coming out in banking. It's a banking guideline called FSISAC. It is not published. It's a private guideline for banks only, but that is either out already or coming out.
Okay. Yeah, Stephen is putting up this question about AI. The TNCs, I guess that's terms and conditions. So he's saying the TNCs of some providers state that data is kept by AI and that the provider accepts no liability for errors or data corruption. So can the AI risk assessment model be explained? So that's his
That goes
question.
to explainability.
Let me see.
So I actually put a snippet of something I had wrote about the bias, and there's some experiments done in removing bias from AI decisions, but the factors that came out to be the top weighted factors aligned directly to the biases that were removed. And there's the research paper from Wakaruju that basically did the experiment. It was basically done with a lot of different healthcare, Department of Justice, and some other fields. But the whole idea is that, to Stephen's point, is that you can try and remove bias, but bias is a human trait, and it's a trait of a society. And you can remove the explicit parts of bias, but AI will still come out with outcomes that are tightly related to those biases that we removed.
So I have another one from Stephen here that is related to the bias. So Stephen is saying, isn't the bulk of bias that has been seen so far just the AI reflecting the existing human bias in the training data?
I'm sorry, that was the answer. That was the question I was answering, not the prior one.
Okay, good. And John, you put up this paragraph and a link here. So thank you very much. So should we move on?
Yeah.
Good. So Alon, I would like to ask you, why is this important? And the context is basically, we now live in an age where AI, cloud, data proliferation outpace traditional security. So the question is, why is protecting sensitive data now more critical?
Sure. Well, it's as a theme, right? It's that ability to access data, the ways to access the sensitive data that organizations are receiving from their customers, from their clients. Simply, there are more ways to access data, and also accessing the data in a faster way and in more volume of data can be more easily accessed, right? It's like, in the past, you would have just few applications that would provision you access to data. But now with the adoption of analytics environments like Snowflake and Databricks, and even with the cloud, right? The accessibility to sensitive data has been just skyrocketing. And we see that also from breaches that are coming both from malicious insiders, and the recent one that we are helping to resolve is, for example, the one that happened in a major Italian bank a few months ago, where an employee just opened his laptop and accessed all the VIP client data of the bank and just was able to extract this information. Right? And this is from one application. Organizations have hundreds and thousands of applications. Not to mention privileged users that are using DirectDB tools. And now with AI, it will also govern and provide more ways to the data. Right? So this needs to be under control. And the problem is that usually organizations are not very good of applying access controls, right? Because the business wants to run. Large organizations, banks, telcos, retailers, they use the data in order to make their business more successful. But on the other side, they need to take good controls on who, when, and how they can take data. And usually, the security comes last. Okay, and this will happen also now with the adoption of AI. Right, they will provide access to the data. Now that we heard that, right, there's no certifications, there's no really limitations to what data they can provide those agents. So there are even more powerful ways to access sensitive data. It needs also need to be under control. So this has been a big problem until now, and it's just going to accelerate as more ways to the data and more powerful ways to get information will just be introduced through this agentic AI.
So whenever you introduce a new technology, you introduce more points of ingress and egress. And particularly with AI, the cyber risks are data poisoning, where malicious actors are going to manipulate the training data sets to introduce vulnerabilities into the AI model. You're going to have adversarial attacks, where they craft subtle inputs and deceive the AI systems, leading to misclassification or incorrect output. You're going to have bias and ethical concerns, where, yes, the bias is inherited from the training data, leading to an unfair decision and a regulatory violation. You're going to have model theft and reverse engineering, where they attempt to steal the AI models through scraping and adversarial techniques. And then you're going to have AI-powered cyber threats, where they leverage AI using social engineering, malware evolution, and automated exploits of vulnerabilities. So now we've got like 5 different categories of threats that we didn't have a few years ago, right? So this is what the advent of technology does. Yes, the business gets excited and wants to do all sorts of things, but as it was just mentioned, the cyber seems to come first. We're hoping to put the cyber, the cyber comes last. We're hoping to put the cyber first.
Thank you. So Jayend, how can we be ready? What are the challenges? My question is, what are the biggest challenges in making data truly AI ready?
So when we talk about, again, this is a great question, right? Like, and even back in the Gartner, like every company's come back and say, hey, yes, there is a lot of agentic AI. Everyone is excited. But when you go back and ask, are you really AI ready? Like, the answer is a lot of people first don't know what that really means. And a lot of companies are still exploring and trying to call themselves AI ready, but they are very far from it. But let me put it first back, right? Like as she already pointed out, like see, there is a AI trust question, like because there's a lot of data poisoning, like bias, and there is all this prompt injection, model leak happening, right? Like but first, as you know, AI, all these agents, large language models, by the saying as it goes, you give in garbage, it's going to give out the garbage, right? Like it's so first, it actually means when someone says AI ready, it actually means is the data that they have is really on the quality level that can be fed to AI to make some decisions, right? Like so it starts with the basic of data quality, and do also the proper data lineage is there, and is it in a quality way, right? Like, and especially companies, of course, there is a separate topic of quality, data quality, and data lineage, but now we are talking in terms of feeding into AI. So what that actually means is creating a trust score. And this is exactly what we are also recommending for many companies to implement. It's about you building a trust score system. Yes, within the company, within an organization, you have all this data, but how much you trust on this data? How much clean is this data? Can you really like rely on the data to make some decisions based on the facts that you see in the data? So you need to build the trust rating system within the data. And another challenge is for many organizations is all this disorganized ecosystem. Like I already heard, like companies has to pull data from the mainframe, has to pull from the Oracle, like, or pull the data from another, like a cloud data or like a in-prem data center. But when all this data comes into the picture, there is no proper tracking what it is there, what is not there, what is AI, what is ready for, what data you can trust, what you cannot trust. But then you need to go and start tagging it or adding a metadata saying that like, hey, what. So basically here you create something based on what we call data value and the risk. Based on the data value and the risk, you score them and you make them ready. It doesn't stop there, right? Like because no company can go and do all this stuff and then start working on some AI agent or like a chatbot. That may take the whole like decades for them. So when at least when companies know that they are there 80% there, then you need to start taking the risk-based approach, where like I mean you do it in a iterative way. Yes, you keep creating the trust score within your data, and also start working on the agents, and then do it in an iterative way, where all the anomalies are detected, and there's a proper traceability. There is a proper like a explanation of all the justification that the AI makes, and it is like a feedback inside the AI system once again. And based on that, the trust rating is being keep adjusted, so that every day by day, the data and its trust score is keep increasing. That way, the AI can get you the right outcome for you.
You also have to consider the fact that you need consent in many cases to be using this data in AI. Now that the privacy laws are evolving, and in each US state right now, we have 13 or 14 of them. By the end of the next couple of years, you're going to see that we have all 50 states have them. So it's going to become much more complex in terms of processes behind the scenes that you need to have in place if you're going to be using consumer data.
I think data provenance is going to be the next big technology issue that we have to employ.
So please explain, are you talking about data lineage?
Yeah, so basically, when I talked before about deconstructing and reconstructing, right? As you deconstruct, right, an element may have 4 or 5 different lineages or sources that it came from. So understanding where it came from and where it ends up. And again, as you get into the RNNs and GANs and stuff, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain that lineage or that provenance.
So John, let me go back to regulations. We talked a little bit about regulating this business before, or this approach. So my question to you, can AI be materially regulated for safe and secure use?
Loaded question, because I think there's so many aspects of it, right? Where our typical applications, we have application logic and application data. Here we have the algorithm, we have the model, we have the training data, we have the possible outcomes and data lineage that we talked about before. Every one of these needs to not only have guardrails and security and some type of audit. Building a regulation, a single regulatory framework around that's going to be really, really difficult. There'll probably be more general type of regulations, like we see with, like I said, with NIST coming out. But the proof is in the pudding, right? As we get down into actually implementing those safeguards, are we going to be effective, and how are we measuring that effectiveness, right? I know some of our fellow panelists here are into the metrics of security and AI, so I'd love to ask them as what their insight is on that.
Well, based upon what I'm seeing in the regulatory market, they are making progress. I think that the general consensus is that if we don't get this right quick, that we're all going to be in deep doo-doo. So there's going to be a process, a methodology, but it's going to be complicated because you're adding in 5 different threat vectors. You're adding in significant more privacy-related issues on top of the AI issues. So can we make a regulation? Yes. How easy will it be to implement? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think companies really need to be aware, because when the lawsuits are already happening, we've got several of them already going to court. Now, based on the current administration's, I don't want to say anything politically incorrect, but you get my drift, that they don't seem to care as much about this, but that doesn't mean that these lawsuits are not going to go forward, and they can impact the sustainabilities of companies significantly. So especially for the bias stuff, and especially around the security, I think we're going to see a lot more revealed as time is going on and people are starting to use this stuff without guardrails.
Yeah, one thing I can add is from the lawsuits, you can see it is making companies to be more accountable. Means all the recent lawsuits, especially the Air Canada one that's very popular, it makes everyone to say that, hey, it's not just you throw in some agent and you cannot hold yourself not accountable for it. But if your AI agent gives you some information, then as a company, you are accountable for that information, right? So this actually changes the paradigm. Means companies nowadays are looking at the outcome of this lawsuit, looking at the outcome of this penalties, and trying to be more stringent on what they can and want to offer from the AI.
Or more indirect with the AI.
That's right.
Yeah. There's a bunch of more questions, Ulf, if you want to take a look.
Yeah. Let's, before we go into the money questions and business questions, so let's take this one from Stephen. Not explainability, I mean the risk assessment that a firm could, let me see, it scrolled me out of that question.
It says not explainability, I mean the risk assessment that a firm should undertake before employing AI system so that it understands its own liability.
Yeah, that one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone?
I can add my point. See, any organization should definitely follow a certain steps while doing all this risk assessment, right? Especially first start with identifying the proper AI use case and the scope. Even though AI is a fancy and all the organization want to jump in, but organization has to look from the liability angle, what they are offering, who is affected. Is it customers or employees or third party? Is there a money involved? Is there a privacy involved? And clearly, I can see a lot of companies, especially from the pharmaceutical, they don't want to take the risk of providing an AI agentic diagnosis, right? Those are the risk assessment they need to consider. But next, also you try to map the risk that you see by building the AI use case with the regulatory risk, right? Especially some of the topic already covered here on the privacy, on the HIPAA compliance. So you need to think from not just from the perspective of the use case now, but from the perspective of the liability angle, right? But the simplest one the company has to start is on the data risk, right? So having an inaccurate or biased data will create a lot of risk. And so the important point to add it in the AI risk assessment is is your data really trusted and have a good trust score? And also it doesn't violate all the privacy and GDPR compliance. So these are some things that needed to assess. But last but not least, you need to assess the AI agent itself, right? There are a lot of AI agents outside, and the recent one that disturbed the market, like a DeepSeek. But can it be trusted? Because even though it is called as an open sourced model, but it is not actually open source, right? It's just open weight model. No one knows how that model is being trained, what data it is being used to train. And that is the case for most of the large language model. No one has a good understanding of what data is being used to train all this large language model. which is going to clearly impact how the outcome of this model is going to be and impact the agentic AI decisions. So company has to assess all this risk before they make any decisions.
I also would add to that companies need to clean their data because, so we did a project with MetLife about 2 years ago when they first started this. And the whole idea behind it was that the chief data officer was in charge of AI initially in conjunction with the cybersecurity team to actually be able to, first of all, clean the data so that the data would be in a reliable and format, because most companies who've grown through acquisition, what happens is one data source gets merged into another data source that gets merged into another data source, and that's where a lot of errors can happen. So you could have the same person in 8 data sources. Which one is the right record? You don't know. And that's where, I actually saw one where the sex was a fish. I mean, stuff like that, right? So you really need to clean the data and have data governance in place before you start hoping that your data model that you're using, your large language model, is actually going to be useful.
Yeah, very true. Even in my past company, which we are discussing, I mean, we are working on the real world data. There were almost 140 genders, right? So data quality is key.
Absolutely.
So Jayend, let's go back. You said something of about agents, AI agents. So can you first explain what is an AI agent?
Definitely, I'll explain. So far, after this introduction of this large language models, all we know is hey, it can digest you some question, it can give you a summarization of what you are asking. Means either you ask what is happening academically or politically or whatever it is, but it just gives you and summarize and provides you some information about what you're asking. But AI agents is quite different. It is it can also reason and it can also take actions. So it means the AI or this large language model is surrounded with all the tools. So I'll give an example. So recently, again, this was an example which also had a liability suit file. In bank, in order to approve a loan, they introduce an AI agent. That agent is not just going to go and check all the records of the person who applied for the loan, but it is also going to make a decision based on the data it is being trained, based on all the data information that is submitted. It is also going to make a decision whether the loan is approved or rejected. So here, when we say agent, it's not just going to tell you what to do, but it is also given the power to do and take it to the next step.
That's what scares me the most.
Well, that's where privacy comes in and automated decision making. That's one of the things that people can opt out of. So if you don't want an AI large language model making a decision for you, you can opt out of it. So again, that goes back into how complex this is.
Sure. I think the best use of AI is asking for a range of options or a range of outcomes, not a single decision, and let the human make that decision.
Yeah, and it is already there everywhere, except you don't see it lively. See, for example, 2 days back, I had a problem with my internet modem, and I opened up the chat bot, and I say hey, my internet modem is not working. And I know on the side, it's not a real person, it's a chat bot, and it just said that, hey, you know what, I find a problem. Let me go and reset your modem. And it just went and restarted the modem, and everything worked great after that. It's good, AI agents are can solve some of your problem, make their own decisions. But as you said, it also scares a lot, right? Especially, I'm sure, in the recent social media, there is this autonomous driving of car, where someone puts on a fake road and to see whether the AI agents can detect it or will it crash it. So all this agent, you have a lot of good side, and you also have a lot of bad side too.
But Jayend, if we talk about trust, to build and maintain trust, my question is, how can organizations build and maintain trust in agentic AI-driven insight?
Yeah, see, that's a good question, right? When it comes to AI trust, first of all, it is no different from you trusting like a person, right? Like a stranger you meet, right? Like I say, when anyone talks about trust, here all we are talking about is like, the transparency, the reliability, the accountability, and of course, is it aligning with our thoughts, right? Like, we don't go and start trusting someone right away, right? Like, we just we'll see first it is aligning with our thoughts, and then there is a transparent information like exchange, and finally we trust the person. Even when it comes to AI, that's how you will start establishing that, right? So what organization will do is first they have to build the so-called transparency within the AI system they built. When we say about transparency, it's all about you capturing why that AI made that decision. What is the justification? Can it explain itself, right? So it's like you telling them, hey, I want you to log all the information why you made the decision, based on what fact, what data you used to come to that conclusion, right? Of course, there are a lot of tools available today, like a Sharp and Lime. These are the technology tools that help you to help and can bundle your AI agents to be more and more transparent. But it doesn't stop there. And next comes the reliability, right? When someone says reliability, the agent, the AI agent or the model should make the same output. It cannot hallucinate. It cannot change itself. So even a small disturbance can completely change the output of a model, right? But so how do you do this? You start training with a lot of synthetic data. You try to find out that anomalies, and then you start adjusting the bias, everything. So you don't just go and put it right and have your customers trying to trust it. So you have to do by creating a lot of synthetic data and checking it. But the third important thing is accountability. It is when you talk about AI accountability, AI is not accountable, right? The fact is the companies or organization producing those agents, they are accountable. So it is a shared accountability, because it is the company's responsibility to produce a quality data, to create the risk-free trusted data to feed into AI to give you the right answer, right? So it's also the accountability plays a huge role there. And last but not least, again, all have this to be aligned with the policies of the enterprise, right? So by making all these components one by one, there will be a growing trust with AI.
Yeah, thank you. So John, could we talk about something that a lot of people are asking about? They keep hearing about GenAI, generative AI, and I get a lot of questions about how new technology can impact AI and GenAI. So my question is, how will advancements with quantum computing affect GenAI?
Sure. Well, one comment about what Jayend said about shared responsibility. We know how well that worked for cloud computing when it first came out, so just a word of caution. But new technologies, especially quantum, if you think about AI today, we're linearizing our problem set, right? Anytime we ask a Gen AI a question, right? There's a very mathematical formula that it follows to try and do weighting, and weighting is based on different either randomized weighting, or it's basically on usage rating. That's a linear process. The reality is the way our mind works doesn't work that way. We do a lot of parallel processing in our head, a lot of fuzzy logic in our head. Quantum computing is really fuzzy logic, right? Any type of a quark can have any three possible states at the same time. And that's interesting because if we start thinking about the problem set for that GenAI is solving for, and the way quantum AI, quantum computing works, they actually it's a great match. The problem right now is we haven't figured out a way of defining problems in a quantum way. Like I'm waiting for the quantum 4GL, fourth generation programming languages to occur. And then maybe we'll start seeing some of these models or some of these algorithms being rebuilt in that way. I think so. If you think about this, chess player, a good chess player will know all the moves that can possibly happen, and they'll look through their opponent's move and figure out what to do next. Um, uh, Watson was one of those machines that looked at every possible move to figure out what goes on next. But then you go to Gen AI, and if you ask Gen AI what move should come next, it's not going to go through all the possible moves because it takes too much consumption resources. It'll try to figure out what the best move is based on an arbitrary weighting system. And that's really, to me, not the way the humans think. So if where quantum comes in, is that quantum can now start looking at the chess move as if it was Watson, right? And start looking at all the possible moves every single time you ask it a question, and give you the right set of answers. I'm pretty specific about the set of answers because you should never ask AI a single answer. You should ask it for a set of options, and you can, as a human, should figure out which options fit well into your model, into your thinking. Sorry, that was a really long answer to a very short question.
So, John, let's continue and move over to money questions and business questions. So my question is, what is the long-term effect of AI credibility, given much of internet content used for training is itself AI generated?
Yeah. So I've just finished writing a paper on this. I call it tainted intelligence because with a lot of the open source AIs and open models that are out there, a lot of the training data is coming from the internet, which is being fueled by AI generated answers. And so we're calling it the crystallization of data, right? Where the data output becomes the data input and keeps on cycling. And you see this with Meta. Meta is replacing human, right? Their lack of human interfaces with bot interfaces. I think it's more for satisfying the vendors, the advertisers, to show clicks. But regardless, if Facebook is going to be mostly bots and less humans, right? What's the viability of the data or the postings that you see? Same thing with training models. As more and more training happens, that's self-ingested. I think we're going to get to a place where it's not going to make any sense anymore. So again, it's just a matter of at what point does that occur? Is it going to occur earlier or later? And I think it's going to happen once we get back to quantum and quantum starts building faster AI machines. There'll be more AI generated data and it'll just kind of feed into each other.
There's another aspect of that when you ask about the money. So I was sitting on a plane coming from Frankfurt to the US like 3 weeks ago, and the gentleman next to me had an AI company that he had sold, and he's having conversations like with Sam Altman and other people, and his perspective has been that we're not going to see return on investment for this for decades. And so it gets to the point where when does AI become too expensive to actually utilize in some cases? And how are people going to make money off of AI? And what we basically agreed together was that, companies that have use cases for AI that use like private data will probably be able to make profits, but like the ones that are trying to do more generalized types of applications, well, probably not. But like the amount of money that they're dumping into this, 10 billion from Microsoft, mega billions from Google, the return on investment on these things is not going to be for a long, long time. So the question becomes, when do they wake up and smell that coffee? If they wake up and smell that coffee, and what does that mean for the rest of us?
That's a great point. I think of the state of a lot of technologies, right? We wouldn't get to where we are today with MP3s and music subscriptions if we didn't have CDs, 8-track tapes, cassettes, right? So maybe this is one of those stepping stones that they're dumping a lot of money into, knowing that it's maybe not the end game. Maybe what's next will be the thing that actually is profitable.
Could be.
Great. So now we are 1 hour into our session here. We have 30 minutes to go, and I think it's time to move into data security. So going back to GenAI, and John, my question is, what are the various relationships between AI and security paradigms, and specifically zero trust?
Yeah, thanks. I'm a big zero trust fan, and I'm more generalist. I don't believe in only IAM and only SDN. I believe that you should have an actual defined centralized control plane and data plane. But that being said, that kind of breaks, or AI kind of breaks the trust that zero trust has basically trying to protect against. Because if you think about the AI models, especially RAG, do you think they're using separate identities, service identities, to get all the data from all your local databases? Or are they using a single identity that's being reused with more entitlements than they should have? If I was a hacker, I would go and hack the automation systems and get into that service identity, because chances are that service identity is being reused or has more access. And again, that kind of goes against what zero trust is all about. And then AI, again, the agentic AI is also not aware of zero trust, meaning does it know that it's not supposed to be on one system or another, or does it just blindly go into systems and try and figure out the best way of getting there? We've seen examples of AI finding ways to get into systems that it's not supposed to get into. And so there's going to be a lot of push and pull back there. AI itself used in zero trust might be a good thing for determining access, but if we separate AI, the general use of AI, and zero trust, I think they're butting heads.
To continue on data security and implementations here, I get questions about open source AI and sometimes about DeepSeek. So can you comment, John, can you comment on how DeepSeek has highlighted several missing guardrails in the big growth of OpenAI?
Yeah, it's funny. I just saw an article today that DeepSeek wasn't a based off of ChatGPT, or OpenAI. Was really based off of some Russian code. Again, I don't know how true that is. It might be AI generated news story. But that being said, as much regulation as we put in, and as much self-awareness that corporations put in to do AI safely, there will always be someone who can take that open source code and remove those guardrails. And I think that's the problem we're going to have with DeepSeek, is that it's uncontrolled from our standpoint, and being uncontrolled and being possibly built by an adversarial country. We have no clue, like Jayend said before, we have no clue the data, the training, the model, everything else that's going into it. And it worries me that way. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg, because the more regulations you put in, the more people adversaries are going to try and get around those regulations by building their own.
So, Jayend, how can a data fabric approach unlock new revenue streams through data monetization?
That's a good question, right? Like, see, of course, we talked and flooded this call a lot with the agentic AI, large language model, but most of the organization, the basic problem is they have a lot of data and they don't know what to do with the data and they don't know how to turn this data into revenue, right? Like even though they have everything in the paper, everything in the requirement, when they go and start working, they see like, oh, this is not going to happen within a month or within like, even years, right? Like by the time the competition might have already like passed off, right? Like so Fabric is what trying to solve this problem, and this is in data world, of course, like coming out of the AI world, in data world, right? Like currently you already have the market flooded with so-called data warehouses, but still there is one big setback with all these data warehouses, which is like bringing means all these data warehouses goes back to the old I will not say old school, but the old way of like you trying to bring all the data into one place, right? Like, and that is something expensive, and organizations spend like somewhere from 3 months to a couple of years to bring the data, and that is one key problem that data fabric solves easily. Like rather than someone trying to move the data, it tries to connect the data and also tries to build that lineage across the data where people can quickly ingest the data and start working on transforming the data into a meaningful product, and then focus on monetizing the data rather than focusing on migrating the data from the distributed or like a disorganized ecosystem into so-called warehouse.
Okay, so let's continue on data security here. So Alon, I'm getting a lot of questions about compliance and de-identification of data. So my question is, what are the new de-identification at rest and in use that can reduce sensitive data risk while complying with new industry compliance requirements?
Sure. So, and this also relates to previous questions about GenAI, right? A simplified way to look at it is see that everything is an application, right? And also AI is an application eventually that has an input and an output to it. Like our other applications that organizations are using day in, day out, as well as tools, as well as the Tableau and Click and the Power BI tools that have been there for years, serving analytics environments from Teradata to the Snowflake and Databricks. So, and if you have this type of a viewpoint that eventually everything is an application, then what we believe and what we have been doing in the last 8 years is providing enforcers for those different types of applications. And those enforcement, what they are doing is both applying the controls on access to the data by protecting the data in use, using from fine-grained access control, today it's called ABAC, attribute-based access control, to dynamic masking, filtering, row, column, cell-level information, as well as even complying with GDPR using something that we invented called the logical deletion, that is today used by many European customers in order to filter out customers who are to be forgotten without actually deleting them in the databases. This has been used by organizations that on immutable data stores such as mainframes and other environments where they could not actually delete the data. So different types of identification functions can be applied today at scale on applications on-prem and cloud using this, what we call the protection of data in use. And of course, this is coupled by protection of data at rest, using tokenization, encryption, masking for non-production environments, and as well as identifying that in in data lakes and big data environments using privacy-enhanced technologies such as bucketing and rounding and the safe harbor requirements of applying different roundization of age and even blood types, etc. So all of these are now available in the market in a way that you can balance the effectiveness of the identification at rest or in use with the security that comes with it. Right? Because there's pros and cons in every one of those options. Of course, when you, for example, apply encryption and tokenization data at rest, right, you need to identify the information, to decrypt it for authorized users. And this usually requires code changes. So the ability to do that with zero code changes is also very important for personalization of those controls. So it's not only choosing the one that you need, whether this is GDPR or PCI version 4 that now requires column level encryption. It's not only choosing the right option of protection of data at rest and in use, it's also looking beyond what is the operationalization of this of the selected identification option in your applications. So that's like how we see the world evolving as different types of enforcers allow us to apply those controls at scale of doing the identification of data at rest and in use.
Okay, so you talk about encryption, tokenization, access control, classification. So my question is, what are critical requirements for choosing a proactive data security platform and combining tokenization, fine-grained access control, monitoring, and classifications?
Now, from our perspective, first of all, it's the platform support, right? Because the wrong way is to choose a technology that can only work on, let's say Snowflake or Databricks, or can only work on Oracle, or right. So the first and the most important thing is ensuring that whatever you choose supports all of your platforms, from the applications still running on mainframes to the cloud data platforms. After that, the second one comes with the ability to apply different types of controls. Right? And if we look at the zero trust maturity model, the zero trust maturity model includes both the ability to provide classification, activity monitoring, very important, right? We want to see who is accessing what. And on top of that, the ability to provide the identification of data at rest and the fine-grained access control. So after we ensure that the platform of choice is allowing us to do it everywhere, right? From the mainframe to the AI agents, then does the platform support all of the different breadth and width of functionality to ensure that we are increasing our zero trust maturity model from the monitoring to the protection. And after that, the third element that is really critical for our customers is the fact that you can do it with zero code changes. Because we cannot change our applications to call an encryption API. We cannot change our applications to decrypt the data. We cannot, right? Because doing that with zero code changes ensures that we can onboard this platform without extensive cost and time to our limited resources. So these are the main three elements for perspective of choosing the right data security platform for large organizations. That's what we see, and especially this by doing those three different components, we ensure that we are not only doing what we need to provide support to the existing compliance requirements, but also being future ready for new regulations that we see more and more. Offshore regulations, solvency regulations, AI regulations, right? And this will come more and more in the near future.
Okay, so you talk about code changes, implementations that are not requiring code changes. You call it zero code.
Yes.
So how is it possible?
Yes, and so in SecuPi, we've been doing that for the last 8 years. We have been able to develop various types of techniques, from transparent gateways to to Java instrumentation agents and different types of enforcers that allow us to onboard those different controls with zero code changes, and do that on applications running on mainframe that are still there, that are accessing the crown jewels, to the cloud data platforms. So this has been a lot of work to be able to provide agents and transparent gateways in order to be able to do that at scale for large organizations. Because what happens is that when you try to, for example, apply tokenization on encryption with just a set of APIs, right? You need to change the applications to call the APIs, right? And this, of course, Ulf, you and I have been scarred for many years by trying to do that in the largest organization in the world, and hence, right, the zero code is really the next evolution in embedding security everywhere, right? So whenever you see here it's just one line of code to call an encryption or tokenization or the identification function, right? An API means somebody needs to code it into your application stack, and this requires developers, and this of course increases the cost, increases the time and the effectiveness of the solution.
So my next question to you, Alon, how is the cloud changing our approach to data security and privacy?
So we talked about the shared responsibility model. Right. The responsibility to protect the data is on the hands of the organizations, and they need to take care that the data that they're lifting from the on-premise legacy systems to the cloud is protected and compliant with the regulations. The cloud simply opens up more ways to access data, to process data, right? Any standard organization, they might have been using two types of, right, AWS, GCP, Azure, each one with its own variety of data platforms. Applications are lifted all the time, right? And our controls are becoming more limited on those applications that are lifted, that are using more and more modern technologies that provide the openness, that provide various ways to access data. And hence the move to the cloud is simply opens up wealth of new opportunities to access data, and with those opportunities comes also the risk that those ways to the data might be abused by insiders, as well as by malicious actors that can use those various new optionalities to access the data in a malicious way.
So talking about cloud, Alon, are organizations also moving sensitive data to cloud?
Right. So we talked about it that when you move sensitive data to cloud, right, you're using different types of pipes, right, like Kafka, and it can be other similar technologies. And when you are moving data from a source to destination, and in this case from on-premise to cloud data platforms, you need to ensure that the data that you are lifting to the cloud is protected, is identified as much as possible, and when it lands, it can be accessed only by authorized and legitimate purpose. And for that, different types of controls are required through the life cycle of the data, right? From the operational sources, it may be sourced in a mainframe or an Oracle on-premise or a SQL Server. When the data moves to the cloud, to the variety of cloud data platforms, data lakes, and consumed by AI models and the AI agents, the data that is accessed by those is protected as much as possible. They're identified in a way that on one side the privacy is sustained, while still it is being useful for analysts, for data scientists, for business users.
Okay. So I frequently get the question from auditors in talking about cloud and on-prem, and what data to keep on-prem and what data you actually can put on the cloud. So the question I would put to you, Alon, should encryption keys be shared with the cloud?
Sure. So this is especially as we are talking with the European audience. Sovereignty laws are very restrictive. And the right question to ask your favorite cloud provider is not whether you can bring your key, right, the BYOK, whether you can encrypt the data with your key. Because today everybody provides the ability to encrypt the data with multiple keys. The more important question is where the data is going to be re-identified, where the data is going to be decrypted, right? Because the encryption is easy and we want to encrypt it as early as possible in the food chain. The more important question is where the data is going to be re-identified. And today, the only model that exists for the cloud providers is to decrypt the data in the data platform themselves. For example, if you have Snowflake or Databricks, or if you have Redshift or other cloud analytic environment, you need to bring them the key so they can decrypt it in their cloud. So the data will be decrypted in Snowflake. Your data will be decrypted in Redshift. Now, what does it entail? It affects the fact that your data will be decrypted, will be in clear text in those platforms, which means that if you have those platforms accessed by third parties, they will be able to see your data in clear text. And for sovereignty requirements, especially if your cloud is hosting the Snowflake in North America, it means that your data will be decrypted in North America, right? And if you have Swiss client data, if you have Chinese client data, if you have Singapore client data, right, it will be decrypted wherever you are processing the data. Okay, and this is of course a very important point that you need to take care of. And for that, we think the right approach is to do what is called client-side encryption. Client-side encryption means that the data is always encrypted in the cloud data platforms, in the Snowflake, in the Redshift, in the Databricks, etc. And the only time the data can be identified is using the client side. So when you are consuming the data and talking about analytics in your Tableau and Click and Power BI, or in your applications, the data will be only decrypted when it is being consumed by an authorized user. And this ensures both the zero trust, fine-grained access control, and ensuring that the zero trust as well as the sovereignty laws are obeyed, because the data will only be decrypted in the client side and not in each one of the cloud data platforms out there.
Oh, if we've got like 8 minutes left, do you want us to do some wrap-up statements?
Yeah, I would like to give you a little bit less than 2 minutes each and summarize your key points. Sure. So I start in alphabetic order. Alon, you are first.
Yeah, sure. So first, Ulf, really thank you for arranging this insightful session. Data security is becoming a pillar in all major organizations, either through the lens of compliance or because of breaches. AI is an accelerator of that, simply because it provides wealth of new ways to access data, and hence protecting the data is now really eminent. And we talked about why and how to protect the data, but this is really a timely topic, and it is aligned beautifully with the zero trust model, because now zero trust has been moving from the old network centric, right, putting more firewalls, putting more controls into the data centricity model. So really, Ulf, thank you very much for arranging that and talking about this timely subject.
You're welcome. Good to have you here, as always. Ariel, you're up next.
Sure. Ulf, thank you. And David, thank you for hosting this. It's been a great session. And to my fellow participants on the panel, learned a lot from you as well, and to the audience. My key thoughts on this are, if you're going to go into AI, make sure that you get expert help. Make sure that all of the things that we're talking about, whether it be regulatory, whether it be governance, whether it be the security controls, whether it be explainability, that you get this information that you need. And we have a program that we are doing a cyber and AI course. The research is being done now by top flight CISOs across the globe. That program will be ready. And if any of you are interested in, sitting in on some of these sessions related to this, they're at Pace University and Seton Hall University. They're done virtually, so you can ping me and I can let you have like a guest seat. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming, as always. So Jayend, you are up next here.
Thank you, Ulf. Thank you for bringing me to this call. Very useful call. A lot of things I learned, and still I can't get out of the question that John put into this call. Like, what would happen to the AI when all the contents are created by AI, right? Like, I'm going to sleep on that topic for a couple of days. But first of all, thank you for all the panel members and audience too. It's a great call. A lot of things has been discussed and learned. And of course, we touched a lot of topic and a lot of AI topic. But I just always want to remind everyone, it's not, don't throw and rush and throw AI or agentic AI wherever you just want to throw. First, make sure spend a lot of time getting the data quality fixed, data properly secured, and it is create a trust scores, make it AI ready. And I know a lot of companies will keep making it as a buzzword or buzz use case to budget and to do something on the AI side. But always take a step back and ask yourself, are you AI ready? So here at Arivonix, we help a lot of customers on that line, and we have a lot of papers, white papers written on that line. Any help you guys need, feel free to reach me in the LinkedIn. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So John, you're up next.
Yeah. Hey, I'm really honored to be on this panel. My panelists are such experts in this area. I'm probably the low man on the totem pole here. But the one thing I'd love you to take away is that, take AI with a grain of salt, right? Remember, Volkswagen has the sign, then drive, right? Trust, instead of trust and verify or verify and trust, verify, then trust. I think, AI is the perfect example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It'll give you confident answers that are not always correct. And so take it with a grain of salt, be aware of what you're using it for, and just, be cognizant of how you use it and why you use it and the ramifications of when it goes wrong. So it's a great tool. It's phenomenal. It's not going away. And I think we just have to be very approach it with some clear glasses. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm glad that we could address most of the questions when they kind of occurred close to a question or topic. So I think we took care of that. And I'd like to go back to the panel and say thank you very much. You are teaching me a lot. And back to our host, Dalim.
Yes, indeed. That was very, very insightful, and such a lot of useful advice and things to think about. I think I'm going to watch this, the playback, the video of this event with a great deal of interest, and I hope you do too. Also, the chat is worth capturing whilst it's still available. So there are lots of references in there to useful subjects. And people such as Agnes have made a number of points in the chat as well. So do make use of that. And also the offers that Ariel has made, that Jayend has made, and others to share further information. AI, good, bad, ugly. Well, there is a whole lot more to learn about this subject, isn't there? And I really want to thank all of you, Alon, Ariel, Jayend, John, and especially Ulf, for bringing this together, giving us so many insights and useful bookmarks along our journey to AI and the world of data. It's been great. Now, I'd also like to thank two other people. One of them is David, who is here, David Grundy, who is our technical administrator for this session, and who will, in due course, make the video available to all of us. So do take the chance to watch that when David does that. And thank you very much for videoing and monitoring this session, David. And finally, to somebody who I notice has been in the audience for this, it's a lady called Kitty Hung. Dr. Kitty Hung is a committee member, fellow committee member of David and myself. But she's currently on a long, long walk across Spain along an ancient pilgrimage route. The pilgrimage route is called the Camino of Santiago, and she's spending 42 days walking along there. But during the course of that, she's managed to spend time with us as well. So, Kitty, thank you very much, and for your question as well. Keep on walking. Indeed, a good blend of ancient and traditions, along with the very modern and the forward thinking. So that's my takeaway for today. Thank you very much, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, Dave. Great to see you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I hope you all enjoyed it.